All right, so when are we going to see baseball? That's the question.
Oh, man, I think we're in trouble because we might be in a spot right now where we might not see baseball for the next 2 years.
Because you really think it's going to get to that?
Wow.
It could at this point, but I still think there's going to be baseball this year. I really do. But we're at the point right now where there could potentially be no baseball for 2020 or for 2021 because the players are treating this like the CBA. It's not. And the owners are not given an inch.
Mm-hmm. Well, explain where we are now, because they've had these proposals and counter proposals. They're just going back and forth playing ping pong, and they're not accepting either proposal. And finally, the players, I guess, Saturday night said, "All right, we're done. I guess Rob Manfred, you step in. I guess Manfred technically can just set the schedule up, whether it's 45 games, 50 games, 60 games, whatever it is." And the players, I guess, would get their 100% prorated salaries. But again, you're only going to see 50 games, which is a joke. Now, how does that work? Do the owners have to agree to that?
No, they don't. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think Manfred's going to step in. He's going to do a 54-game season. And then we're going to see a strike next year. And if that's what it comes down to, if Manfred steps in, then that's absolutely what's going to happen. There will be a strike in 2021. And, none of this is good for baseball because I've said it a million times. This is owners' opportunity to invest in their own investment by being bullish on their own investment, by bringing new fans to the game, and players' opportunity to invest in the future of the game. And nobody seems to want to do that. I really just don't understand it.
Well, and then the PR hit, especially from the player standpoint. I would assume that most fans who really aren't following it are just going to side with the owners. But the PR hit of this, if they don't play or if they play such a shortened season, is going to be awful.
Well, that's the funny thing is the owners kind of get they get a lot from the fans in this because they kind of just skate by because people are like, oh, look at these greedy players and everything, right? And they're not. These guys, most of them, they don't make it. Most of these guys don't end up on max Scherzer contracts or anything like that. And most of them have 3, 4, 5 years to make money. And they're not these, greedy millionaires or anything. It's ridiculous that fans think that way. But here we are, where they're the ones who are having fingers pointed at them saying, like, hey, you guys are being greedy, this, that, and the other thing, and it's just not correct.
I thought the way Tony Clark left it, it was inevitable that they were going to play. To just tell us when and where, and we'll show up, because they will, if they implement the season and it's only 50 or 60 games, they'll still get 100% prorated, which is what they were fighting for. They'll get that, but they won't get the expanded playoffs and they won't get the extra games and all that. So they lose that part. But because the other part was sort of, I guess, collectively bargained, that if he sets a date and he says the season starts here, I think the vast majority of those guys are going to show up.
I'm inclined to agree. I think I would say when and if Manfred does say, like, all right, you guys are due to show up here at this date, this time, I think almost all of them will show up. I really don't think there's going to be any holdouts, if you will. No Lenny Dykstra's a la 1994. But I think you're going to get just about every single player to show up at that point.
Right.
But what if there's a percentage of owners that really don't want to play, and they want to take a stand because there's just so many hurdles, especially between the players and the owners, to get over regarding trust. What if there's just a certain amount of them say, you know what, I'm not agreeing to that. I know Manfred can step in, but we're not gonna agree to it. Is that a possibility?
I think it's a possibility, but I think you'd see such a vast amount of pressure from the rest of the league that it just, really wouldn't happen. I could see it from like the Athletics or something, one of the teams that are really cheap. Mm-hmm. But I just think the league would step in, and I just don't see it being an issue.
All right, so if they do resume, where does that sort of put the Nats and say they play a 50-game season? It's just a sprint.
That means every game is colossal.
Every game is huge. Your starters, that's obviously always been the strength of the Nats. They're not going to be ready to, right? They're not going to be ready to go 7-8 innings to be, maybe they'll only get 3 or 4 outings like that, where they really are stretched out and feel good. I mean, where would a team like the Nats fit in a shortened season?
Well, it's so funny you bring up the Nats, of course, being a DC radio station. But the fact of the matter is, could you imagine if it was a 50-game season last year?
Oh, I know.
Right. Oh, yeah. I mean,
right.
Of course.
We're the worst team in baseball.
Yeah.
Yep, I know.
It's like hands down. And it's just amazing that, over the course of 50 games, how you can see one team versus 162, and then, they can completely blossom and change. And we're not going to have any of that. We're not going to have any of these teams who come into their own over the course of 162 games. It's going to be a sprint, like you guys said.
I mean, think about it. If they play 50 games, if you equate it to an NFL season, if an NFL team starts 0-2 or 0-3, the chances of them making the playoffs are pretty much zero, especially 0-3. But if a baseball team starts out, good teams have started out the season. We just talked about them.
Well, like
1-9 or 1-10 or 2.
You start out 5-10. That's a huge hole.
Or 2-8. If you start out 2-8 or 4-11, the chances of getting back into it in a 50-game schedule are really, the odds are stacked against you, man. I know.
Especially if they don't reconfigure the playoffs.
Right.
Yeah. Which they're not. It doesn't appear like
doesn't
they're going
sound
to.
like it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's just going to make, and then you're going to have injuries, because I know you're going to have another spring training, but who knows what these guys have been doing in the off season? I mean, they're probably just throwing to, guys who caught in college that just live down the street, right. And you're going to have injuries. You just are. You're going to be rusty.
I'd still rather them do it than not, Jason.
Well, yeah,
I'll take 50 games over nothing.
Yeah. So would you, Ryan? Right?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you right now, most of these guys, what they're doing is they're waiting in their backyards, drinking beer, with the fire going, waiting to be like, all right, come back to work.
Uh-huh.
That's what most of these guys are doing.
Yeah.
They don't, we look to baseball players, and I said it before, but we look to baseball players and we're like, hey, this guy's got a $10 million contract, right? It's not most of them.
No, very small percentage.
We don't all have these $10 million contracts, right? And the fact of the matter is most of these guys are just waiting to get back to work, and they don't have anything else better to do, so they're burning their time.
Well, I would think that if, like Eric is saying, if Manfred's going to come in and just set the number, and
he's going to do that this week.
He's going to do it today. He's got to do it today.
Yeah.
He can't give the owners another couple of days to review it and put forward another proposal. He's got to just say, all right, here's the schedule today. Let's get it on, because
the players are done, dude. They're not negotiating anymore. They're done. They said, give us a date. Tell us where to show up.
I mean, if the owners came back and said, all right, we'll do 65 games, 100% prorated money, then they would obviously do it. But the owners aren't going to do that. They're not going to budge.
They're not going to have a choice. I really think he's going to force their hands, because I don't know, something about the whole 100% we're going to play baseball this year thing,
right, is
sitting with me. But I think he's going to force their hands. I really do.
And then how do you think that's going to play out for next year? So let's say he forces their hands and they play their 50 games, and then what happens next year?
It's going to be awful. It's going to be awful.
Right.
This whole situation, I just, again, it goes back to, I cannot understand owners not being bullish on their own investment here, and they're not.
Right. Right.
Well, we're going to see what happens. Like I said, I would expect Manfred to come out with something today. You know,
I agree.
You can't wait 2 or 3 days.
I agree.
Yeah, the clock's ticking.
I think today something's going to happen, in my opinion, as well.
Yeah.
Ryan, thanks a lot for the time. We do appreciate it. It's Ryan Spaeder, baseball analyst. Check him out online at aceofspader.com. Thanks again.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Hey, Drabby told me that last time I was on with you guys, I was talking about the Astros and the cheating stuff, and I was going to get a gloat a little bit of the fact that other teams were involved. They are, and it's coming out.
Well, we already know some of them.
Well, we know the Red Sox are involved. Like, what other teams are you talking about?
Well, the news this weekend came out about the Yankees and everything. And
oh, yeah. Yeah.
What were the Yankees doing? Just something from the outfield fence or whatever? Something with the cameras?
Man.
So no team was as egregious as the Astros, though, right?
I'm inclined to think there are teams who were worse.
Oh, wow.
Really?
We will see.